Hey true believers, it's Stan Lee here, back from the dead to narrate this video or something. You know, true believers, back in the 1960s when I was creating by myself all the great Marvel super people characters like Thor, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Superman, Batman, Sherlock Holmes, Jesus. Okay, thank you Stan Lee for that wonderful introduction. I just read these two books about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, biographies in the form of comics themselves by a guy named Tom Scioli, who I'd never read before. And I had read actually two biographies of these guys before. I read Mark Gavanier's Jack Kirby bio, which is probably your best starting place for a Jack Kirby biography. And then also there was another graphic novel of Stan Lee's life that came out maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. I don't know. Peter David wrote it. I don't really think much of that one. But these books, these Tom Scioli graphic novels, I can recommend much more heartily. They are pretty great. The first one, the Kirby one, came out in 2020. And the art style is a little different in each one. It looks more in the Kirby book like it's either digitally watercolored or actually really watercolored. I don't know which. But and also the Kirby one is told almost like an autobiography in the voice of Kirby, as if he's narrating it, which is kind of ironic because of the two guys, Kirby was far less outspoken. You know, Stan Lee was like the face of Marvel Comics and the used car salesman that was constantly puffing his stuff and promoting Marvel. And yeah, so Kirby left Marvel around 69 or 70, I can't remember which. And they kind of parted ways, but would interact. There's a lot of overlap in these two biographies because especially in the 1960s, there was a lot of overlap with these characters. I would say I preferred the Stan Lee biography, even though I think history and myself and most people are kind of gravitating more towards Kirby as the more creative force behind a lot of the Marvel characters. And Stan Lee is just kind of this guy who blames his faulty memory and so on for, you know, kind of being ambiguous about how much he did and how much the other guys did. The overall message I got from these biographies, I think with Kirby, is that his life was, you know, he was a very solid character, I think, and he basically was constantly fighting throughout his life. That's kind of like the metaphor, is fighting for, you know, having more control of his creations and so on. And it's unfortunate that, you know, almost every step of the way he was kind of detoured, and he put all his energy into all these works. And really, at some point, when he finally got a little more control at DC of his characters, it was unfortunate that they didn't succeed as well, and there was a lot of confusion and things that happened. But with Stan Lee, his biography is totally different. It's more like what can I do to make it, no matter what? Like, you could call it selling out, or you can just call it, you know, not quite having as much creative integrity maybe, but especially in his later days, it's kind of a sad decline into this, like I said, used car salesman as he tries to make it in the internet with various endeavors, and then as his mind kind of collapses, and his heirs and his other people that trying to get control of his money are trying to get as much control as possible. It's just like he's trying to be in these Marvel movies to have cameos, but his creativity is just like down the drain. And I think it's kind of sad, and it's kind of, you just see him as this character who's going to conventions to charge $100 for signatures. But it's yeah, it's both of the stories are fascinating as character studies, and I think Stan Lee was a character. I think whether you like him or you don't like him, I think you can't argue that he was a character. And yeah, these books really illuminate that. So I do recommend them, and check them out. The Jack Kirby one came out 2020, and the Stan Lee one just came out in the last few months. So I think they're pretty good, and I would read more by this guy, Tom Scioli. All the great Marvel super people characters.